The unexpected war. The sky over planet Kale was never calm. It was a world of wind and stone, where warriors were born from fire and raised on honor. The clans ruled with blades older than time, and bloodlines were marked by sacred swords passed from mother to daughter, and in the middle of it all was a human named Eli Crane. He wasn't a warrior, not really. He came from Earth as a peacekeeper, a technician. His job was to fix broken scanners, not fight alien wars. But everything changed. On the day the sky burned, it started with a scream. A piercing alarm echoed across the stone city of Jaltor. Soldiers ran, children cried. Above, dark ships, ones no one recognized, pierced through the clouds, dropping fire like rain. Eli had never seen a real battle before. Now he stood in one. He took cover behind a shattered wall, gripping a small laser tool, useless against plasma rifles. All around him the proud Kale warriors fought to defend their honor. One of them, a tall alien woman with violet skin and silver hair, stood in the center like a storm. Her name was Rael Sherry, daughter of the Blade Matron, and last heir of her clan. She fought with a curved ancient sword glowing with blue fire. Her movements were pure poetry, fast, deadly, precise, but even warriors fall. One wrong step, a blast to her shoulder. Rael dropped the sword and crashed to the ground. The blade skidded across the stones, landing right at Eli's feet. Time froze. Everyone stared. The invaders raised their weapons. Eli didn't think. He picked up the sword. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, something strange happened. The blade shimmered. A soft hum pulsed through his palm. Symbols along the metal glowed, and suddenly, the warriors stopped fighting. Not just the Kale. Even the enemy paused. Gasps. Whispers. Eyes widened. Rael struggled to sit up, her voice weak. "You fool." "What? Have you done?" Eli held the sword like a stick, clueless. I was just trying to help. But help had a price. And that sword, it was more than a weapon. The enemy launched another wave. Eli barely blocked the first strike, more by luck than skill. The blade moved strangely, as if guiding his hand, as if it wanted to protect her. Rael's voice cracked again. "Protect me, and you bind yourself to me." "What does that mean?" We didn't answer, but the invaders fell back one by one. The fire stopped. The air grew still, and Eli, shaking, dropped the blade at her feet. Rael grabbed it, but the glow didn't return. She looked at him. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he wielded her clan sword, he was no longer just a guest on Kale. He was now her bonded defender, and by ancient law, her future husband. But for now, Eli only knew two things. He was alive, and everyone was staring at him like he just started a war, or maybe ended one. Either way, things would never be the same again. The blade that binds Eli didn't sleep that night. He sat in a stone chamber lit by glowing blue crystals. The walls were carved with symbols he couldn't read. Guards with sharp armor stood by the door, watching. Him, but not speaking. It felt more like a cage than a guest room. On the table in front of him, wrapped in soft cloth, was the sword. The one he had picked up. The one that changed everything. He didn't want to look at it, but he couldn't look away. The door creaked. Rael Sherry stepped in, her shoulder now bandaged. Her silver hair hung loose. She didn't wear armor now, only a dark robe with her clan's sigil. She stared at him like he was a puzzle no one had solved. Eli stood quickly. "Look, I didn't mean to." She raised a hand. Silence, human. Her voice wasn't angry, but it held weight, like she wasn't just speaking as herself, but as something bigger. "You touched my clan's blade," she said. "No outsider has done that in 1,000 years." "I was just trying to help," he said again, softer this time. "You did," she admitted. "But the sword, it responded to you." He blinked. "Responded?" Rael stepped closer and unwrapped the cloth. The sword shimmered again, pulsing with soft blue light. "It has chosen you." Eli laughed nervously. "Okay, sure, cool sci-fi magic sword. Now can I go home?" Rael didn't smile. You don't understand. She sat down across from him. Her face was calm, but her hands were tight. On Kale, a sacred sword is bound by life and blood. When you held it to protect me, before the enemy witnessed by fire and death. She paused. Eli leaned forward. What? She looked into his eyes. You entered a binding oath, by our laws. We are now life bonded. Eli blinked. I'm sorry. What? You are my protector, my future mate. My clan now sees you as part of my bloodline. Eli stood up. Hold on. I didn't agree to that. I didn't even know your customs. It does not matter, she said simply. Intent is not required, only action. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. This is crazy. I just picked up a sword. Rael stood too, her voice sharp now. You picked up my sword. You fought in my name. My people are bound by tradition. I cannot undo this. They stared at each other for a long time. Finally, she spoke softly. You have two choices. He stopped. She held up two fingers. You accept your role, or you challenge the bond in the arena. Eli swallowed. Arena? Duel. Before my people. If you win, the bond is broken. If you lose, I die? She nodded. Or worse, you become slave blood, marked, dishonored. No one will protect you, not even me. Eli sat back down. His head spun. This wasn't a bad dream. This was real. Aliens, ancient swords, blood oaths, marriage trials, and he was right in the middle. He looked at Rael. You don't even like me. I don't know you, she said. But you acted with courage, and now, our fates are joined. She stepped closer and whispered, You may be my husband by accident, but your next move will decide what kind of man you truly are. Outside, the people of her clan gathered. Word had spread. The human had taken up the sword. The fire chose him. Now the clan waited to see, would he fight fate or accept it? The arena of blood and vows. The sun rose over the red cliffs of Kyle, but it wasn't warm. It painted the sky in fire, but Eli only felt cold. He stood at the edge of a wide, circular pit carved into the rock. The arena. Its floor was covered in symbols old and cracked from centuries of battles. On the high walls, warriors of Rael's clan filled the seats, silent, watching. They had come to see a choice. Would the human fight the bond, or keep it? Rael stood beside him, tall and calm. She wore her ceremonial armor now, black with silver edges. Her burned shoulder was still healing, but her presence was strong. Eli looked down at the sword they'd laid before him. Her sword, the one he had picked up 4 nights ago to protect her. And that one action had pulled him into a world of vows, honor, and ancient law. You still don't have to do this, Rael said quietly. Eli looked at her. If I don't fight, I'm stuck in a marriage I never agreed to. If you fight and lose, she said, they will brand you. You'll become nothing. Eli sighed. Great options. Rael's voice softened. But if you accept the bond, you become clan. Protected, respected. He stared at her, unsure. And what would I be to you? She didn't blink. Husband, in name at least. A future you can choose to grow or break in time. But not today. Today, we survive. Horn echoed across the arena, a voice shouted from above. The outsider must choose the blade, or the trial. The crowd grew quiet. Eli looked up. He thought of Earth. Of the small things he missed. Coffee, rain, traffic lights. But none of that could help him now. He reached for the sword. His fingers closed around the hilt. The blade lit up, again responding to him. Gasps echoed from the crowd. I choose the blade, he said. A long silence followed. Then the crowd cheered. Not wild, not loud, but respectful. The kind given to someone who accepted honor over fear. That night, the clan held a fire ceremony. Eli was invited to sit beside Rael, surrounded by warriors and firelight. Meat roasted on long spears. Drums echoed through the valley. Children peeked at him with wide eyes, whispering. He touched the blade. Rael handed him a cup of dark liquid. Drink this, it seals the bond. He looked at her. Does it taste terrible? She smirked. Very. They both drank. The crowd clapped once, slow and steady. Then the eldest Blade sister spoke the words. The sword has chosen. The bond is made. May it protect and guide. Later, Eli sat outside looking at the stars. Rael came to sit beside him. You didn't have to do it, she said. I know, so why did you? Eli shrugged. Back home, people don't fight for strangers. I wanted to change that. Maybe I started with you. She looked at him, eyes softer than before. Tomorrow, we begin training. You must learn to wield the blade. Properly, he groaned. Homework? She smiled. Husband duties. Eli laughed. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for now, under the alien sky, beside a warrior woman who once called him a fool, he felt less like a stranger, and more like someone becoming something greater. The warrior's lessons, Eli fell to the ground again. Sand flew into his face. His elbow scraped against the sharp rock. The sacred sword clanged beside him, mocking his effort. Again, Rael said firmly. He groaned. Are you sure I'm not already married to pain? Rael didn't smile. Not yet. She stood tall, arms crossed, her silver hair tied back in a warrior's knot. The heat of the training ground made her armor shimmer under the twin suns. This is not pain, she said. This is learning. Eli picked up the sword with both hands. Why is it so heavy? It only feels heavy because your spirit is weak, she replied calmly. He looked at her. That's encouraging. Every morning for the last 10 days, Eli woke before the suns rose. Every morning he trained with Rael in the high cliffs behind her clan's fortress. The wind screamed, the rocks burned under his boots, and his arms ached from swinging the sword wrong over and over. But he kept trying, because something had changed in him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about belonging. Rael watched him carefully. He still moved like a builder, not a fighter. But he had stopped complaining. His hands, once soft, were now rough. His eyes, once confused, were focused. He had spirit, and her sword, the sacred blade of her ancestors, still glowed when he held it. No other outsider had ever made it do that, not even her own cousins. It was confusing. That afternoon they paused for water. Eli sat on a flat rock, wiping sweat from his forehead. Rael tossed him a small fruit from a nearby bush. He caught it, surprised. Thanks. She sat across from him. You are improving. He bit the fruit. That's the first nice thing you've said to me in 2 weeks. I said your elbows were less stupid yesterday. True, he grinned. I think that was romantic in your language. Rael rolled her eyes, but the corners of her mouth lifted, just a little. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sky shift from orange to deep violet. Then she spoke. My people thought I would bond with a general, maybe a high-born warrior. Eli looked at her. Disappointed? She paused. No. That one word sat between them like a quiet fire. Later they walked back toward the fortress. The path curved through glowing crystal fields. A few Kale children ran up and bowed to Eli, laughing. He blinked, unsure what to do. Rael whispered, Tap your chest once. It's our way of saying, I see you. He did. The kids giggled and ran away. You're becoming part of the clan, Rael said quietly. Eli looked at her. Even if this whole husband thing started by accident, I'm trying, he said. She nodded. And that's what matters. Back in the fortress as night fell, Eli placed the sword on its stand. He stared at it, not as a cursed object anymore, but as something earned. Rael watched him from the doorway. You still have far to go. I'm not quitting, he replied. She stepped closer. You don't need to be perfect, Eli. You only need to be worthy. He looked into her eyes. For you? He asked. No, she whispered. For yourself. The challenge of Blood Eli was finally starting to feel like part of something. He trained every morning. He ate with Rael's clan. The younger warriors no longer stared like he was a mistake. They watched him with quiet respect. But peace never lasts long on Kale, especially when pride is wounded. The trouble began during a feast. Fires burned high. Dancers moved between tables. Roasted meat filled the air with spice, and Eli, he was smiling for the first time in weeks. Rael sat beside him, her armor gone, replaced with ceremonial robes. Her hair was braided in warrior style, a braid that signaled respect for her bonded mate. That small gesture did not go unnoticed. Across the hall stood Torvek, a tall, sharp-eyed Kale warrior with golden armor and a long scar across his cheek. He had trained with Rael since childhood. He expected to marry her one day. He expected the sword would pass to him, but it had chosen a human instead. And his honor could not accept that. Torvek slammed his mug down. I call a blood challenge, he shouted across the hall. All voices fell silent. Rael stood quickly. Torvek, don't. The outsider is unworthy, he shouted. He holds a blade he does not understand. He walks among us like one of our own. But he is not Kale. Eli stood too. Hey, look, I didn't ask for any of this. You picked up the sword, Torvek snapped. Then face the consequences in the arena, one-on-one. Gasps spread through the hall. Rael stepped forward, furious. You would challenge your own blood for pride? Torvek pointed at Eli. I challenge him for your hand, for the sword, for the right of the bond. Eli's stomach dropped. What? What happens if I lose? Torvek smiled coldly. You lose her. You lose the sword. And if I choose, you lose your life. Later in private, Rael paced the chamber, her voice tight with rage. He's doing this for power, she said. He never wanted me. He wanted my title, my name. Eli sat on the bench, the sword across his lap. Then I should back out. No. What? She turned to him. If you step down now, you'll be seen as a coward. You'll lose your honor, and mine. The bond will be broken, but so will your place here. He swallowed hard. I'm not a warrior, Rael. You're not yet, she said. But you have something Torvek never will. What's that? She stepped close. You don't fight for pride. You fight for others. The sword feels that. That's why it chose you. The next day, the arena was full again. This time not for a decision, but for a duel. The rules were simple. No armor, no guns, only swords, until one yields or falls. Torvek walked in like a shadow, his golden blade humming with fire. Eli walked in slower, the sacred sword in both hands. It felt less heavy now, like it knew what he needed. Across the stone ring, Rael stood among the elders, her face calm but her fists clenched. She could not interfere. This was his trial now. The horn blew. Torvek charged fast, faster than Eli expected. Blades clashed. Sparks flew. Eli blocked the first two strikes, stumbled on the third, and rolled to the ground. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But Eli didn't give up. He stood, focused. He stopped trying to fight like a Kale. He fought like Eli. He dodged instead of matching strength. He waited. He moved smarter, not harder. When Torvek swung wide, Eli stepped in and knocked the blade aside. One clean motion. The sacred sword hovered at Torvek's neck. Silence. Then, I yield, Torvek growled. The crowd roared. Rael's eyes glistened. Eli dropped his sword, breathing hard. He didn't win because he was stronger. He won because he had something worth protecting. Her choice, his promise. The fire in the arena had died, but the memory of the duel still burned. Eli. sat alone on a high balcony, legs hanging over the edge, the cool Kyle wind brushing against his face. Below, the city was alive with celebration. Drums, dancing, music made from crystal bells and echo flutes. They were celebrating him, a human, a stranger who picked up the wrong sword, and somehow became the right one to hold it. But Eli didn't feel like a hero. His arms still hurt. His ribs were bruised. His palms were raw from the blade's grip. His mind spun with everything that had happened in the last few weeks. He didn't come here to fight. He didn't come here to be a husband. He just wanted to help, and now he didn't know what he was anymore. Footsteps approached behind him. He didn't need to turn to know it was Rael. She always walked like she was ready for battle, even when the battle was over. She sat beside him without a word. For a moment, they just listened to the sounds of the city. Then Rael spoke softly. "You didn't have to accept his challenge. I know. You could have let the bond break. I know that too." She turned her head. "Then why fight?" Eli sighed. He looked at the stars above, the same stars Earth once shared. "Because I didn't want to lose the only thing here that made me feel real." Rael raised an eyebrow. "The sword?" He smiled faintly. "You." Silence again, but this time not awkward. Warm. Rael looked at him for a long time. "You've changed," she said. "When you arrived, you were soft. You tripped over your own feet. You flinched when anyone yelled." "I still do," Eli admitted. She actually laughed, a small rare sound. "But now," she continued, "you stand taller. You think before you speak. You swing the sword like it belongs to you. And when Torvik tried to tear everything from us, you stood in the fire. For me." He looked at her. "You never asked me to." She nodded. "I didn't have to." She stood up, pulling something from her robe. A small object, a stone pendant shaped like two crossed blades inside a circle. She handed it to him. "This is the oath token of my line. It is given only once. To the one I choose, not just as protector, not just as bondmate, but as partner." In truth, Eli held it carefully. "Rael, you've earned my respect. And more." She hesitated, then added, "I choose you, Eli Crane. Not because the sword says so, but because I say so." Eli felt something tighten in his chest. He stood too. He took the pendant and placed it around his neck, then reached out, gently, and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I don't know what kind of husband I'll be," he said. Rael leaned in slightly, her forehead brushing his. "Just don't stop being the man who picked up a blade for a stranger." "I promise." Below, the fires of the clan burned bright, but here on the quiet balcony something brighter had started. Trust, not forced by tradition, but chosen. The bond forged in fire. The stars were quiet again, but on Kyle, peace never stayed. Long a new threat had arrived. Rael stood at the high wall of her clan's fortress, staring out at the horizon. Black smoke rose in the distance. Enemy banners, unknown symbols, ships landing. More invaders. But she didn't look afraid. Not this time. Because this time she wasn't alone. Eli stepped beside her, fully armored in clan gear. His shoulders held weight now, his back was straighter. And across his side, sheathed with care, was the sacred sword that once didn't belong to him. Now it did. Now he did. "The scouts say they've crossed the third valley," Rael said. Eli nodded. "Do we run?" "No," she said calmly. "We stand." Eli smiled. "Thought you might say that." She looked at him, then gently placed her hand over his on the wall. The gesture was quiet, but strong. "Today, you fight as my equal." "I thought I already was," he said. "You were, but now they'll see it too." Below, warriors gathered. This time, not one questioned Eli's place. They nodded to him as one of their own. Some even saluted. Even Torvik, bruised but humbled, bowed his head slightly. Rael's voice rose behind him, clear and commanding. "This blade chose him, and so have I. He carries our blood now. He stands in fire with us, not as outsider, but as clan. The warriors shouted in agreement. Eli looked across them and felt it, not just respect, but belonging. As the army moved, Rael and Eli stood at the front. Their steps matched, their eyes forward, their bond unbreakable. She turned slightly and said, "You were never meant to be here, you know." "I know," Eli replied, "but now I can't imagine being anywhere else." As the enemy drew near, drums beat in the cliffs, echoing the call to battle. But inside Eli, there was no fear, because love had replaced doubt. Honor had replaced weakness. And Rael, she no longer saw him as a mistake. She saw him as her choice. Together, they raised their swords. Together, they ran into the fire.